Hello, my name is Sadie Morway, and I am a doctorate in athletic training student at Indiana State University. And today I'm going to be giving a little cooking demonstration. So this is just really an instructional video for anybody who's curious about cooking and or nutrition and or if you're hungry. So all of this information can be used from a healthcare professional perspective as well as the general population. So from this video, I hope you gain some insight. I hope you get a little bit more exposure to some of the different nutritional components that are out there, as well as experiment in the kitchen a little bit. And hopefully we can give you just some new insight onto how to apply this to your health and hopefully feed a little bit of your hungry bellies. So we're gonna start here. We've got all the things we need for a delicious meal, and today we're gonna be making kind of a bean and veggie bowl with some flank steak. So what I've got here, if you want to follow along, you're more than welcome. I'll kind of go over the ingredients first and then explain them a little bit more in depth as we go along. So I've got here black beans. So this is a meal for 2 people roughly. So this is about 1.5 cups of black beans. And then I've got my fruit and veggies here. And we've got onions, asparagus, apple, and red pepper. And then we've also got some Brussels sprouts that are kind of waiting to be cut up. So I've got about 1 cup of each of the vegetables, about 1/2 cup of apples here. So that'll be kind of a little fun ingredient we add in later. And onions just for flavor. And then I've also got 5-ounce pieces of flank steak here. So 2 pieces of those. And we're gonna start off, and I start with a coconut oil base. So I want to talk a little bit about fats. So coconut oil is the first thing we're going to talk about. And the reason we're going to talk about it is because it is one of my favorite fats of all time. It's considered a superfood because of the nutritional value that it brings to our diet. So a lot of times we're a little bit scared of fats, especially since back in the 70s it started the low-fat diet thing, and we really tended to veer away from fats, but really what we found is we were missing good fats when we started doing low-fat diet. So what's really nice, I'm going to turn this heat on so we can start cooking. So I've got like a medium to high heat here. Also that the coconut oil there, that vat of it is from Costco, huge fan, because here in America we do things big, right? So I've got medium to high heat, and I've got about 1 tablespoon of that coconut oil. So I'm going to kind of go back to this to give you a little bit of words on the screen too, hopefully to help you learn a little bit better. So fats, the best way to describe them is just like any other nutrient, they're forms of molecules. So for fats, they tend to be long chain triglycerides, and what's great about coconut oil is it's a medium chain triglyceride, so it tends to go to our liver pretty rapidly, which means we can use it up for energy pretty quick, and if not, then it's made into ketones, which is great for brain power. Also, coconut oil is awesome for the nervous system, and it's antimicrobial, so it's wonderful for anything having to do with bacteria. So if we're looking at a healthy gut, this is an amazing addition to any type of meal you're making. Also, last little thing, it does increase those positive cholesterol component, so it increases that HDL, which reduces the risk of high blood pressure high cholesterol. So now that this pan is hot, we're gonna start here. I always add the things first that take the longest to cook. So in this scenario, we're gonna put in our onions first, and then we're gonna start chopping up these Brussels sprouts to get those in right away. So the next thing I wanna kind of start talking about, since we tapped on fats and oils a little bit, is veggies. So the reason I chose this meal is because, oops, loud noises in the kitchen, right? The reason I chose this meal is because this is something that is friendly for people across the board with any type of digestive issue, any type of, we're cooking with gas now. Turn that heat down a little bit. I'm gonna get these Brussels sprouts in right away. Those can get going. All right, we're gonna stir these guys up. Want to make sure we just keep those veggies moving on that oil, and keep that heat to medium to high. But you don't want to go too low with that. You want to kind of sear them a little bit. So a few other things about plants here. The reason I chose beans and veggies and things that are a little bit more of that high fiber. There's a lot of reasons why, but we're just going to kind of look here. So this is what we call plant power. So when we're looking at carbohydrate, and this is wonderful for the athletic population as well as the general population. When we look at carbohydrates, again, people tend to veer away from carbs, and carbs are not the enemy by any means. They're actually our friend, and we need to have high carb diets. They just need to be the right kind of carbs. So what I have on here is slow carb, and what that means is in our systems there's, again, it's how that molecule is organized, but with simple carbs or more starchy things, so your rices, pastas, breads, that kind of stuff, those are all simple carbs. Those are metabolized or need to be metabolized really rapidly in the system before they're transferred to fat. If we don't use them up really rapidly, they kind of get lost, and there's really not a lot of nutritional value with that. So a slow carb, which is when you have carbohydrates like beans, vegetables, that kind of thing that are higher in those fibers, higher in protein, that kind of stuff, we see a longer lasting effect with those carbs, so they last us longer throughout the day, which is a wonderful thing. Again, here, these slow carbs are great because they really reduce risks of a lot of the diseases that we're seeing. So heart disease, obesity, diabetes, those are all reduced when we see people that are eating a slower carb diet. So this is such a great benefit. It keeps you full longer. It helps you poop. I don't know if you saw that on here, but I did write it down because it's true. It really helps with all those digestive things in amazing ways. So that's why we like veggie heavy dishes, and that's what we're going to be making today. So now that my Brussels sprouts are nice and green, doesn't take too long, we're going to put the next couple things in which don't take too long to cook. Our asparagus and red pepper. So we're going to plop those in. I'm going to do the fruit last because it's not going to take very long to cook. And I'm also going to turn on my heat for the steak here so we can kind of get that rolling. So I want to keep stirring this. I like a pretty traditional, I'm a salt and pepper kind of girl. So I like sea salt. I added probably half a teaspoon, a little bit of black pepper. And the sodium and the iodine from that sea salt is wonderful. It helps keep those cells nice and balanced. So don't be afraid to use sea salt. A little bit different than table salt. So just kind of keep that in mind. So now that our pan's heating up for our flank steak, we're going to keep making sure this is tossed. And you don't have to toss it like me. You can stir it with a thing. That's completely fine too. So the next thing I kind of want to talk about, since we're incorporating this into our dish, is meat. I am not a huge meat eater. This is actually probably the first piece of meat I'm going to have all week, which is completely fine, but this is what I kind of want to talk about next, is meat versus no meat, because this is kind of big in the fitness realm right now and nutrition. And where this kind of debate really stemmed from is it's long heated, and there's a lot of different routes that can be taken, but a few things I really want to just touch on is, first of all, where is the meat coming from? Because that plays into the picture. So it's hard to say if meat is good or bad if it's not coming from a good source. If we're eating meat that was not, let's say the cow was not eating the grass, well, that grass is connected to dirt, which dirt has vitamins and minerals in it, and therefore that cow probably didn't get all the nutritional value it should have, and therefore the quality of meat and the source it came from is going to be a little bit diminished in that. So kind of back to this, the source is huge. The quantity plays into this too, because our systems can really only digest a certain amount of protein, and that might come as a shock, especially in the athletic population. There's kind of that belief that we need quite a bit of protein, but actually we only need about 15% of our diet in protein to really sustain a good, healthy life. So with that in mind, we can have a 15 to 20% protein-based diet and be completely fine and be very, very healthy. And that doesn't mean that it has to come from meat, because our black beans have protein, as does all of our dark green veggies. So kind of keeping those things in mind when you decide to or not to incorporate meat into your diet. All right, so we're going to keep stirring these. These veggies are actually about done, so we're going to toss in the beans now just so they can get kind of heated back up. I use raw dried beans, and I cook them kind of overnight, but you're welcome to use canned beans as well. I would recommend rinsing them if you're going to do that. Also, make sure to wash hands beforehand. I did, even though it's not on camera, I promise. So now that our pan's hot for our flank steak, I'm going to sear this kind of on both sides just for a couple minutes on each until I like mine a little bit more on the rare side. Again, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. This is looking like a really good meal. All right, so I'm going to kind of stir this up. This looks great. A little stir fry. Woo! When that green starts to come out of those veggies, that's when we know that nutritional value is kind of at its prime. Raw vegetables are going to be the best for nutritional intake, but typically they're a little harder for the palate. So I like to saute them briefly with that coconut oil. It just makes things taste incredible and really makes them a good addition really to any meal. So now that I've got my steak cooking here, my veggies are about done. Toss those. I'm going to add in my apples now because those are kind of ready. So apples are an example of that simple carbohydrate. So I like to incorporate some type of simple carb into my slow carb meal because then my body's able to use up this first, and then it has more that it can rely back onto down the road. Add those apples in. And then I'm going to add a little balsamic vinegar. Vinegars are awesome additions to any meal. Especially I like balsamic because it's got a little bit of a sweet taste to it. Getting stuck here. And balsamic vinegar is a great addition to any meal. Vinegars are amazing for the gut especially because it helps increase the acidity in your stomach. I know that sounds crazy because a lot of people have issues with their stomach, especially feeling acidic, but actually a lot of the problems we experience with gastrointestinal stuff is because of low stomach acid. And when we eat vinegar-based things, it helps stimulate that hydrochloric acid in our stomach to help us break down the nutrients that we're intaking. So I love to use vinegar in a lot of my dishes. A little trick about balsamic vinegar is it reduces, which means it becomes a little bit thicker once you add that to the heat. So you have to keep that in mind, and you gotta keep stirring it, otherwise it can burn. So you always add it last, and after I'm done sauteing those, I add that little bit of balsamic, stir it up a little bit more, and these veggies are done, so I'm gonna turn that off. I'm just gonna wait here. I'm gonna flip this flank steak. And flank steak doesn't take too long to cook because it's quite thin. I choose flank steak because it's one of the leanest types of beef cut you can get. And this particular flank steak is grass-fed. So as I kind of talked about before, when those animals go in and actually eat those minerals from the ground, they end up themselves being more nutrient dense. So then when we intake a part of that cow in a flank steak form, the nutritional value of that is going to be higher for us. So a little bit of salt on this side, a little bit of pepper. We're almost done here. These look amazing. I'm going to put these into a dish. See if I don't spill here. Oh, whatever. Those kitchens are for making messes. So here's our dish so far. Oh my God, it looks amazing. Can't wait to eat that. So I'm gonna wait for my flank steak to kind of finish cooking. That shouldn't take too long on both sides. So in short, this is an amazing meal that you can take home and feed for yourself. As an athletic trainer and a healthcare professional, I know that often we don't take care of ourselves as well as we take care of our patients, and this is an amazing way to do that. Really feeding your body the nutrients it needs to be successful as a body on this earth is one of the best things you can do for it. Secondly, this is a great thing to recommend to your patients. It's friendly in terms of allergies. It's amazing in terms of being high carb when we're talking about the athletic population, which we typically, in our healthcare profession, we typically work with the athletic population and they want higher carb meals. This is an amazing carb meal that's slow carb rather than that fast carb. So this is a great substitution for a lot of different people. The age range is very friendly. Even kids, when you start them young on eating veggies and beans, that's something they get adapted to pretty quickly and something they're usually a little more accustomed to when it's introduced at a younger age. So something to kind of keep in mind. Our flank steak is about done here. So I'm going to turn this off. Oh yes. Let me get a fork here. Let's see what this looks like on the inside. Yep. Nice and rare. This looks unbelievable. All right, plop this on top. And look at that. An amazing meal that you can take home and cook for yourself, take care of yourself, or you can recommend it to a friend, family, patient, whoever you would like. So I really hope you enjoyed this educational video. I hope you gained something from it, and I hope you are not afraid to get a little creative in the kitchen. In terms of the spices, I wanted to kind of touch base on those. I use salt and pepper. It's pretty traditional with that balsamic, but I do play around with a lot of other spices, just not today because that sometimes scares people away. Don't be afraid to try some spices on some new things at home in your own kitchen. This is an under 20-minute video, and it took me less than 20 minutes to make all this. So good luck, and I hope you have fun, and I hope your belly's full when you're finished. Thank you.